The sun is shining, it is warm, summer is here. I'm loving it, my plants are loving it. And I thought I'd jump on here to show you a couple of them that are doing some stuff. What is up guys, my name is Lithius and welcome to Roots Ready. Boom, so we're gonna start right here. This is my Begonia Sizemore. What a name, what an appropriately named plant actually, because look at the size of these leaves, absolutely huge. You can kind of see where we sort of started with one of these leaves and then it slowly just keeps on growing and keeps on pushing out new growth. This plant hasn't stopped growing. I actually got this at the first plant swap that I went to last year from Memo, from Houseplanty Goodness. And it's doing really, really well. In fact, it's still in moss, which isn't great. You can see the moss is kind of wet at the bottom there because I've had to leave a little bit of a reservoir for the plant. But I am going to have to switch this over from moss into soil. And despite the extremely harsh conditions I give this plant, because it goes absolutely bone dry. Listen to this. Can you hear that? That's the moss, super, super dry, but the plant seems to be really, really resilient and it keeps on growing despite the lackluster care and support I've been giving it. But I think it's still doing really well. When I do water this plant, I give it a nice deep soak so that moss is really, really damp. But I think it is time for a bit of change. I'm going to put it in some soil. That might be in the next video, so stay tuned for that. But the Begonia Sizemore, oh, look at that. If the camera will focus on it, you can get to appreciate those lovely, lovely, luscious leaves. Check that out, wow. When I first got this plant actually, I thought I'd be put off by the fuzziness, as you can see here. The leaves, the petiole are super, super fuzzy. And that's not something I typically go for in my plant collection. I find this can be a little bit off-putting, a little bit creepy if you ask me, which is why I've sort of stayed away from the likes of the Philodendron verrucosum. But I've done it with this one and it's not so bad, so who knows, I might be venturing down a more fuzzy route in the future. So this is the first plant, the Begonia Sizemore. Now for a pop of colour, I thought I'd introduce you to my Euphorbia. I can't quite remember exactly what the name of this plant is, but I'll find it and I'll stick it on the screen. But you can see those gorgeous red blooms that have just come in the past couple of weeks. And to be fair, they've got some quite good staying power because it's been a while and they're still here. In my experience, cacti, which is not Euphorbia, the flowers don't last too long, so they sort of come and they go as quickly as they come. So I really, really enjoy this plant. You know, it sits in a corner of my house that you wouldn't really notice it. So the fact that it's got these bright red flowers on there, it really attracts your attention. And I am really, really glad to have it. When I propagated this actually, it had no leaves as well. So that's another really positive thing about this plant. So I think it's doing well. I think it's going to continue growing. And yeah, I couldn't be happier to have this one in my collection. Now sticking with flowering succulents for a second, this is my Gymnosylum, and the reason I'm showing it to you is because of this bloom. You can see that it's coming in just here, and lovely people have and some of my lovely followers on Instagram have sort of just mentioned to me that the flowers don't last too long. I was actually going to wait for this to open up and bloom so I can show you, but I'm not sure if I'm going to catch it. I've been so busy these past couple of weeks. So I've decided to show you at this stage. If I do catch it, I'll definitely come back and show you what it looks like then. If not here, definitely on my Instagram page, which is @RootsReady, if you want to check it out there. But this plant has only been with me, just like the Sizemore, since last year's, the first ever plant swap event. And it hasn't flowered. In fact, oh wow, I can see that it's got a couple more buds down here, which I've only just noticed. So there's a couple more flower buds. Yeah, so there's a couple more buds. I don't know, it won't pick it up. I'm gonna have to take some B-roll, but over here is one bud and there's another one just behind it, which if you ask me is quite cool. So this won't be the only time I get to enjoy the flowers of this gymnosylum. So yeah, just watch this space, lots more to come over the summer. If you've been following my channel for a while, you would have known that I had a lovely Crystosperma johnsonii. It was huge, it was massive, it was one of my favorite plants. Unfortunately, the winter months was just a bit too tough on it. To be fair, I'm gonna put my hands up and accept blame. I should have stuck it on a heat mat. I should have given it some more humidity over those months, and I didn't. I thought it would power through as it has in previous years, and it just didn't. I sort of intervened a little bit too late. But I did manage to get a replacement, and it was just a stub. And I honestly thought that the plant was going to die, and it wasn't going to make it at all because it just did nothing for so long. And then I noticed that it has produced a new leaf. Now the leaf is a little bit crinkled and squashed, and that's just because it's still in a plastic baggie just to sort of maintain that humidity. I think I'm going to try to slowly pull it out of there and put it into my grow tent where it can get ample light, loads and loads of light, and good enough humidity, so over 60% humidity, and I think that will be okay. And just to let it keep growing. Unfortunately, it's getting quite cramped in the grow tent, so I'm just gonna have to find some space. So until I do, I'm gonna leave it in the grow bag and let it take in as much of that sunlight that it's getting from the east facing window over here. But before this summer is done, I would love to sort of see this thing size up and give me 2, 3 leaves, 4, 5. I'm probably dreaming at this point, but yeah, this is exactly what I want. But let me bring you in for a closer look. So as you can see, it's got those lovely red venation on it, and the stem, which you may not be able to see here, and because it's so juvenile, has some thorns on it, and it just adds to the look and the prehistoric look of this plant. But for me, it's all about those deep lobes, and that triangle sort of shaped leaves and that red venation. So it's doing really well, and yeah, I'm glad that I can have a second chance with this plant. The last plant on this list is none other than my Anthurium peltigrum. I didn't know what to expect with this plant, so I bought this as, I think it had 2 leaves on it, and I think they're still here. So here are the oldest leaves on this plant, and they started sizing up in, yeah, just taking little steps forwards. You can see it went from something like this to this, and then, you know, it stepped up slowly, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. But the last leaf, look at the size of that. And I still believe it's got a little bit more hardening to do. But the size of it is bigger than my hand. It is huge, bigger than my face. Wow. I did not know what to expect, guys. So when this thing started growing, I was like, okay, it's getting really tall. The petioles really stretching out. Could it be that the grow tent hasn't got enough light? But it's got plenty of light. On this shelf where this grows, it's got 2 grow lights on there, which is overkill for what this plant needs. But yeah, just look at that. I'm super proud of this plant. I'm really happy. Another thing that I really like is how I've managed to get it all to grow straight up. I've had to use a bit of plant tape down here just to hold all of the leaves. Otherwise, what I find is that a lot of anthuriums are sprawlers. They like to spread their leaves, and that just doesn't work for me. I've got lots and lots of plants. I need to contain that space as much as possible. So I really like the way that it's all grown really compact. So who knows what's next? Could it be an inflorescence for the first time? It could be. I doubt it at this stage. It's probably a little bit too young. But I imagine the next leaf is going to be bigger and bigger. Who knows where we're going to end up with this plant. And I'm going to show you the roots real quick. So look at those noodles. Check that out. It is absolutely exploding with new root growth. And I'm growing this thing in pon, as you can see, and honestly it hasn't skipped a beat. And I find the plant to be actually quite thirsty. It is growing quite a bit. I don't think it's ready for a repot just yet. I'm gonna wait until those roots get really dense before doing so, because I think this plant doesn't like too much space. It likes to be contained a bit. It likes to be a bit more constrained where the roots are concerned. So I'm going to keep it here for a little while, maybe next year or something. Who knows? Depending on how the plant grows, I'm going to keep an eye on it and adjust appropriately. But I found that it's quite thirsty, and I thought this wasn't one of the thirstier anthuriums. But this one, I'll put a bit of water in the reservoir. Within 2 days, it's gone, like bone dry gone. Like the top, I watered this maybe 2 days ago, and it's just got a little bit more moisture in it, but there's no water. Absolutely no water in the reservoir. It's completely dry. Even though I go a couple of days without watering this plant, after it goes bone dry, it still seems to be doing okay. So it's something I'm going to keep an eye on to make sure I don't overwater it or underwater it, because so far it seems to be working, whatever I'm doing. So super proud of this plant. Okay, so that's all for today, and I hope you enjoyed this little update on a few plants, how they're doing this summer. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep planting.